All right, so this next problem is from our covering and surrounding unit, and it's going to focus on surface area. So when we think about surface area, the first thing we should be thinking about is when we're talking about area, we're talking about covering a surface. So surface area, we're thinking about taking a three-dimensional object and covering every surface. I like to think about it like wrapping a present. You want to make sure that you're putting wrapping paper on every surface so the person can't see what the gift is underneath. So the first thing we need to think about is, let's think about each surface kind of separately and finding those areas of each surface separately and then maybe putting them back together in the end. So the first ones that we're going to look at are the ends of our rectangular prism that we have here. So I'm just going to make an area where we're going to write down some information we know about the ends. So as we can see, each end is labeled with a dimension that's 4 meters, and then because it's a rectangle, or in this case a square, we also need our other side, or our length or our width. So from our other end, we can see that this length is 4, so that means that this also has to be 4. So each of our end is a 4 by 4 square. So when we're finding the area of a square, of course we're going to multiply our length by our width, and we're going to get 4 times 4 is 16. So what that's going to mean is each of our ends is going to have an area of 16 square meters. So what we really have is we have 2 groups of 16, or 16 times 2, to give us 32 square meters for just our ends. So we have our ends taken care of. Now what we can do is we can take a look at 2 more surfaces that are going to be the same. We can take a look at our front and our back. So I'm just going to label this here. Now we have our front and our back surfaces. And again, because it's a rectangular prism, those 2 surfaces have to be identical to each other. So if we're looking for the dimensions in our front, we can see that it has a length of 16 meters, and it has a width of 4 meters. So we have a 16 by 4 rectangle for our front. 16 times 4, we know would give us an area of just the front of giving us 64 square meters. But then again, we have the back as well, which we know is exactly the same. So we really have 2 groups of 64, or 2 sides that are 64 square meters. And when we do 64 times 2, that's going to give us 128 square meters for just our front and our back surfaces. So far we've taken care of our 2 ends and our front and our back, so that's 4 total surfaces. And we know that in every rectangular prism, if it's 3-dimensional, like all rectangular prisms are, it has to have 6 surfaces. So we have 2 more surfaces that we know we have to take care of, and that's our top and our bottom, which is sometimes easy to forget about. So I know I have my top and the bottom. And if we look at the top or the bottom we can see still has that length that's shared with the front of 16 meters. So we have 16 for our length. And then we can look here at the width, which is 4, which is the same as one of those ends. So kind of just like our front and our back, our top and our bottom are also going to be 16 by 4 rectangles. So the top or the bottom is going to have 64 square meters for its area, but again, we have 2 groups of them. We have a top and a bottom, so I really have 2 groups of 64 again, which we know is going to give us 128 square meters. So now what we've done is we found our area of our ends, our front and our back, and our tops and our bottom. But remember, when we're talking about surface area, we're talking about all of those surfaces put together. So the very last thing we need to do is we need to take all of our areas that we've figured out for all of our different surfaces, and we need to combine them. So we're going to take our 128, our 128 and our 32, and we're gonna add them together. So when we add all of those together, we should get a total of 288 total square meters in order to cover the entire surface, all of the surfaces of our rectangular prism. So our answer would be 288 square meters for the surface area of the shape.